Continuing our reading in Hellbent for Election by Phyllis Speshock, Chapter 17. We settled ourselves in the hayloft and watched. For a while, the activity on the road below. The woman came from the house with the German shepherd barking at her heels. A man ran out from the garage in back. A car approached from the opposite direction, skidded to a halt as it came to the huge obstacle, completely blocking the way. 2 men and a woman got out and slogged through the mud to inspect the yoke. The 3 men tried giving it a shove, but it would not budge. "The strangest thing," we heard one of them say, "that hole right through the middle of the trunk." "Must be where the lightning hit," one woman volunteered logically, "though it looks as if it had been done deliberately." "Make a nice yard ornament," the other woman suggested. "If we ever get it out of the road," a man added dourly. Then one of them suggested telephoning for a highway crew, and they all plodded across the soggy lawn and up to the porch and disappeared inside. "She will likely have some floors to scrub now," said Alexis. "The poor dog will be the least of it." I turned and looked at him, bright and cheerful with his legs crossed Indian style. "How did you do it?" I asked. "I mean, bore right through the tree without so much as a scratch. And what did you mean of matter and substance? Did you mean that you are of finer stuff, firmer stuff than the oak? But then how is it that you can walk right through walls and doors without breaking them down?" "Ah, Hellbent," he sighed. "Are we to have more of your pseudo-scientific interrogation?" "Why is it pseudo-scientific?" "Well, to you I suppose it is not. To you I suppose it is quite real. However, in the overall picture, known facts are few and theories are many. So many that the total aspect of what you call science is to our species a snarl of presuppositions. It goes without saying that we are led to mild amusement when one of you makes some new scientific discovery that startles your planet." "I see. We know very little then." He shrugged. "You will discover what he allows, Hellbent. No more and no less. But from a celestial point of view, the profusion of conjecture does not. Well, it does give a pseudo-scientific cast, you must admit. Also, no small irritation when the implication is made that he is behind the times." "Behind the times, Alexis? Do we imply that?" "Absolutely. In your prayers you address him as if you felt he could not possibly understand modern languages. In your ceremonies you employ archaic terminology. Your hymns cling to antiquated jargon. Your lessons are delivered to you sprinkled with borderline obsolete expressions." But after all, Alexis," I interrupted, "all this stems from the guidebook. Do not forget that the guidebook is old, and that the lessons we are taught are concerned with happenings of long ago. If we somehow conclude that this dates him, do not blame us. He always was, and is, and shall ever be," said Alexis. "Most of you seem prone to cling to his history, but to disregard his present power and knowledge. You limit him. But I rather suspect you like to think of him as the ruler of yesterday and the ruler of tomorrow because you do not particularly care to have him meddling in today. I admit that the complexities which are one by one revealed to you in this age were but trivia designed by him before the foundation of the earth would indeed be frightening and perhaps even cause humans to take serious thought before launching into mischief." I thought about it for a few minutes and felt a twinge of shame. "We are a rebellious, fidgeting lot, aren't we, Alexis?" He sighed, looking out at the rain. "Oh, yes, Hellbent. Squirming, writhing, protesting. But then, what you are is not up to me, except as I am so assigned. It does seem incredible that he should be so concerned over you, does it not?" I drew in a deep breath. "Yes, Alexis, it does. But you never explained about the tree." "Oh, that," he said with a shrug. "You would not understand if I did. Let us just put it this way. I wished to go through the house, but I did not wish for the tree to fall on me. Do you mean it has again to do with free will? Oh, something like that. Or you might say it was all an object lesson from above, designed to teach you his watchful care. And then he laughed so that I was not quite exactly sure what he meant. But since more teasing of the situation would have only led to more thought twisting by him, I decided to leave it. In the end, he would have directed my attention to the fact that all would be made perfectly clear when and if I acquiesced. Recognizing his temporal victory, he fairly sparkled when he said, smiling, "Let us get back to folly transient. You have given me the impression that it was rather one-sided relationship, with folly making most of the overtures. Is that the idea you wish to convey?" Not necessarily, Alexis. I do not intend to shift the blame, nor even to place it. She was a receptive girl, certainly, and more so. However, if I had been a different sort, well, she might have been a different sort. But the whole affair, at best, was spasmodic and more of a retreat than pursuit on your part. Well, probably because I realized sooner that this was not what I wanted. I see. But since her original quest was of a different nature, she was deluded longer? Yes, that is, she thought her quest was different, that she searched for the perfect storybook kind of love, but I have come to wonder since then, Alexis, if all humans do not really seek a supernatural satisfaction. He made us that way for himself. Ah, for himself, Hellbent. But still distinct individuals. His ultimate goal for you is union to himself for your sake, so that he may overflow, spreading glory and happiness through you for eternity. But then, you do not want that. So get on with the consequences of your association with folly. You finally broke the thing off completely? Yes and no. I finally stopped seeing her altogether, but then she came to Della with the news that she was expecting a child. Alexis shook his head. A logical outcome. How did Della react? Badly, I'm afraid. You see, Folly was still there when I came from work. Della was crying. How could you, Wilfred? How could you, Wilful, she kept saying. After the way we were brought up, how could you? Folly did not cry at all. She only smirked. You'll have to marry me, she said. Now you'll have to marry me. I could not see that making another mistake would in any way obliterate the first. The child would have suffered for our discontent. I refused. I agreed to assume all financial responsibility and indeed make a sizable settlement. She was nearly ready to accept that when non-regenerate returned home. He was the one who upset the whole plan. How was that? You will remember that I told you Della shrank from the involvement of motherhood. Non-regenerate, far from forcing the issue, never even brought it up again. Nonetheless, it was obvious by the attention he paid other people's children that he privately hankered after a family of his own. He was 36 now and doubtless felt a sweep of desolation at the incompletion of this facet of his life. Folly's predicament seemed made to order. He immediately asked, "What of the child? Are you so all concerned with personal encumbrance that you forgot the plight of the child?" Della was dumbfounded. "Surely," she said, "you cannot mean to infer what?" "What else?" he asked. "Do you think I could stand by and see this child given to strangers or put in an orphanage, any more than I could have turned Wilful out when he was alone and underage?" "But," said Della, "that was different. Wilful was older." "And needed me so much less," cried Non. "There's no other way, Della dear. I could not sleep nights if we did not adopt this child. It's as if Providence sought to override and overrule our pitiful human decisions." Said Alexis. "Strange talk from a man who professed to have no truck with him." "I thought so too, but when I questioned him, he only said, 'Prescience is still science, Wilful,' and he would not have his mind changed. It was the first time I ever saw him so unswerving. And Della? What of Della? I sighed. Della wept and worried, died 1,000 deaths, and nearly wished the child dead as well, rather than face what she felt was the possible ruination of life. While watching her suffer, I came close to agreeing to the marriage, but I knew with certainty that would have destroyed the child. In the end, I sided with Nan. You have been happily married for over 10 years, Della, I reasoned. I am sure that you and Nan would make fine parents, since he wants this so much. Perhaps later you will even decide to have other children. But she turned on me in a rage. You! She screamed. After all our misery, all our clawing our way up from the pits of agony, you went out and did this heinous deed. But she had grown from childhood to womanhood, and she now understood a bit of the ingredients of love, consideration, self-sacrifice. In 10 years, he had never asked her for anything. She did concede then? Yes. She went away for a few months and stayed in the locale of the home to which Folly went. When the child was born, Della and Nan made all arrangements and brought it home. Folly and her family moved off to the next county. And the child's name, I take it from your parents' relatives' conversation, is Vicey? Yes, that is, her middle name is. The moment Nan set eyes on her, he said, "We shall name her Bonnie." But Della, more fearsome, said, "We shall call her Victim." And then her face crumpled. Poor Victim! Poor little Victim! And she gathered up the child in her arms and rocked it to and fro, murmuring her love. Alexis drew a deep breath. She did succumb to the child then. Succumb? I laughed aloud. She adores Vicey. She fusses and coos and yearns over the child to this very day. She protects and defends and cherishes her. To harm the child is to tamper with a tigress. Alexis chuckled. But they did name her Victim? They named her both Bonnie Victim. But Della chose her to call her Vicey, and Nan, enthralled by a sudden fatherhood, soon fell in love with the nickname. Later, when Nan and I both had an inkling that Della was seriously considering adding to the family, it became abruptly necessary for her to submit to surgery. Vicey then became more important than ever to them. And how did you feel toward her? Did you remain in the same house with them still? I loved her, of course, I said quietly. I felt sick over the gossip spread by my parents' relatives, but I could not wish them to do any differently. Vicey's childhood was idyllic, and yes, I moved into an apartment by myself. The relationship was too close. I sometimes found myself wanting to display parental affection. For Nan's sake, I moved out. It was easier to remain objective as the visiting uncle. You went back to your books? Yes, among other things, but look, they've cleared the tree away, and the sun is coming out again. All right, he said understandingly. We will give it a rest. And then he added, loneliness is not an easy thing to discuss. That's the end of chapter 17.